All right, I want to take a minute to talk about this new piece of legislation that just showed up, signed by Kelly Ayotte. Uh, it's been posted about on NHPR. It's a reroute of an article that was originally published in the Keene Sentinel, and it's republished in partnership with Granite State News Collaborative, which does good work to make sure that we have disseminated news throughout different channels from the state. This new piece of legislation, HB 60, is essentially codifying landlord rights to evict tenants. So we'll hop over to the article itself right now. Uh, According to this top line, landlords will be able to evict tenants at the end of their lease under a bill that goes into effect in New Hampshire next July 1st. Now, actually, I want to point out that this is not correct according to the legislation itself. And I'm just going to hop over really fast. We'll come back and we'll read the actual text of the bill in a minute. But I want to point out here that this actually says it will take effect January 1st, 2026. Now, I don't see anything else on this page that says this will happen on July 1st. There's no heads up. So in my opinion, this is sort of a problematic thing that's happening with this article. They're actually saying it's going to happen 6 months later than it's actually happening, according to the text of the bill itself. So we may very well see people that are misled by this article get evicted because they thought they had more time. So essentially, it's important for people to make sure that you pay attention to this and stay locked into this, because you could be, if you fall into the category of a renter, then this could seriously affect you within less than 6 months. It's just how it is. So at any rate, let's get back to the actual article that was shared, even though I take issue with it right off the bat. Oh gosh. Essentially, currently tenants in most apartments can't legally be evicted even at the end of their lease without good cause, such as failure to pay rent, damaging the property, endangering others, or not meeting rental terms. So there's a degree of protections here that allow tenants to not just be put out on the street, and this would put a hard stop to that. And that's scary for people who are maybe, you know, hand to mouth every month. You're struggling. You're just trying to keep it together, and you don't have any other option of a place to go. What happens if you don't have any type of broader family structure that allows you to, say, go move in with your parents if something happens? How does this affect single mothers? How does this affect working class young people who are still trying to get a foothold in this economy? And if you don't have, you know, market investments that give you passive income, how do you maintain this if you're not making, say, more than $75,000 a year? Like if you're right on that, barely making the 30% of your monthly income at around 55,000 a year, something like that. This is very, very tenuous and is going to create a significant amount of anxiety for renters within the state of New Hampshire. It also functionally helps to enshrine the tax protections that we offer here in the state of New Hampshire. We don't have any type of progressive taxation here. Everything is centered around the property tax, which, that's a whole different topic for a whole different video, and maybe a lot of other videos. It's something that's been discussed on this channel before, probably won't stop being discussed on this channel. But it's important to address this kind of thing. So Bob Lynn, the sponsor of HB 60, the prime sponsor, is the article paraphrases here, but he said the bill won't increase homelessness because if a landlord decides to not renew a lease for one renter, that landlord would then find another tenant for the apartment. What happens to the tenant that was displaced, dude? What if they don't have a safety net? In what world does this insane sentence actually like he's contradicting himself. It's fascinating how incredibly asinine and unaware this person is, which likely indicates that he himself has no concept of what it's like to struggle economically. And that's just kind of a thing with elected officials in New Hampshire, because we pay our elected officials, as people may have seen in my recent interview with Eric Gallagher, we pay our elected officials $100 a year, not including travel expenses. $100 a year. Okay. That means that the working class in New Hampshire is functionally shut out of being able to operate and have any kind of legislative control over what happens in the state house, because it requires you to set aside time. If you don't live in or near Concord, right, that means you have to make a serious commute. That's beating up on your car. That's, you know, it's taking away from your time to be at work and do your job to make money to meet that 30% of your monthly income to make your rent and pay your bills, right? So we already have a slant towards making it so that the wealthiest members of the state are the ones that sort of control the apparatus. And that's really bad if you're just a regular old working class New Hampshireite. That's a huge problem. So, and then you get really insane statements like this, where it's like, well, it's not going to increase the homelessness rate because they'll just find another tenant. Like, that tenant that doesn't live there anymore suddenly just vanishes into thin air or dies, right? And this also is not even remotely aware of the fact that right now the Trump administration is functionally trying to criminalize homelessness, right? We've got a new executive order that wants to essentially make it so that you can be civilly committed if you are homeless. I want to say that again. You will be civilly committed if you are homeless. They can throw you into an institution or jail if you are homeless. And then we are creating laws that increase the opportunity for people to become homeless. This is a way to punish the poor. That is what this is. It is a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to completely denigrating the working class in the United States of America, and in a more microcosmic way in New Hampshire. And that's really, really alarming. So I want to bounce back over. We're going to talk about this bill itself, right? I want to read this text, okay? Because it's important to understand what the meat of it actually is. I'm talking about this, you might be getting really alarmed, probably for good reason, but let's drill in. So, for a lease or tenancy of the original term, which is 6 months or longer, or for a lease or tenancy the term of which is less than 6 months, but which has been renewed for a total period of 6 months or longer, the expiration of the term of the lease or tenancy, provided that the landlord has provided the tenant with written notice at least 60 days in advance. So I want to stop right there. That means that they have to give you 2 months notice before they do this. They could functionally just refuse to renew your lease, so if you want to address this problem with your landlord, you need to be asking them ahead of time. You need to say, hey, I want a new locked in lease 2 months, more than 2 months prior to your actual end of lease. Because essentially what that means is that if you go to your landlord and you say, hey, I really want to renew my lease, and they're like putting it off, they're not giving you an answer, or they're just outright saying no, more than 2 months prior, it's important to note that like this might be a red flag that your landlord may be trying to evict you in the long term, right? Because at that 2 month marker, they can say, hey, I'm going to evict you. And you have then 60 days to figure out what the hell you're going to do about your living situation. Now, if you don't have extended family that already has a secure housing situation, you don't have friends, you don't have people that can put you up, that's going to basically force you out of your home, and you might not be able to find new housing because the the rent premiums are increasing. The whole point of this is to allow landlords to deny a certain rate for housing so that they can increase the rental costs and then make more passive income off of those rentals. It's it's really, really important to understand that what's happening here is a type of capital protection. Okay. This is about making sure that landlords who are earning a passive income, they're not doing anything, right? They don't have to, they can sit in their house all day and just dead scroll Instagram or TikTok. They can watch YouTube videos, and they are literally paying their bills and making money off of you having to go to work and earn and work 40 hours more a week at some sort of low tier rate, which is very common in this state. They are completely sustained off of your labor and the fact that you need, and I must emphasize need, because this is a basic human need. Shelter is a human need. Okay. They are profiting off of that. We have privatized your personal need for a home, for shelter. And you are being denied opportunities to create financial security for yourself by being locked into a lower pay rate, because employers are incentivized, very much so, to reduce the amount that they are paying their workers, right? An employer is always going to look to keep their labor costs as low as possible because that's the easiest part of the business to cut costs, cut spending so that they can increase their bottom line. This is all favoring the top end of earners. Okay, this is all favoring people who are not working, not putting in the effort, the labor to pay for things. And what it does is it threatens you as an individual with homelessness, something that the Trump administration is currently trying to criminalize, as evidenced by a recent executive order. Okay? They want to civilly commit people who are homeless. They will put you in prison. They will put you in some sort of institution if you are homeless. Everybody should be pretty alarmed about this, because we're now creating separate laws in the state house that will codify the ability to increase the homelessness rate. And what you get from conservative lawmakers is this nonsense. They don't think about it. I really want to go back and repeat this line. He said the bill won't increase homelessness because if a landlord decides to not renew a lease for one renter, that landlord would then find another tenant for the apartment. What happens to the person who is displaced? That's the thing that we should be focusing on in this scenario. So it's important to reach out to your state representatives, your state senators. You want to get in touch with them. You want to say, hey, I demand that you focus on correcting this law. We should be seeing new proposed legislation going up that counters this. We should be seeing any degree of opposition to this. We need something, because what this is going to do is it's going to further solidify the fact that New Hampshire is an aging state. It is a tax haven for wealthy people who are seeking to flee places like New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, folks that essentially want to protect their nest egg and who will be able to find rentals, property that they can spend a minuscule percentage of their monthly income on. Meanwhile, we are completely displacing the workforce, the lifeblood of fun, interesting communities in New Hampshire. This will kill the state. This is not this alone, mind you. It takes a lot of different elements to completely kill the state, but this will functionally destroy any kind of competitive future that New Hampshire has. It's going to completely alienate anybody who's young from staying in the state, from seeking to move into the state, and we're going to see further declines in just basic offerings that the state has. So it's really, really imperative that we actively fight to resist this type of legislation that is so I'm running out of words here. Like it's so dismissive and insulting to your average working New Hampshireite, and we should be really working and arguing and fighting for stuff like this to just simply not happen.